All right, my friends, I know it's a couple minutes early, and we'll have some stragglers ease their way in. No big deal. It's not time to officially get going. I just want to give y'all a reminder about a few things. We've got our prayer list and our packets up here. If you need a packet or if you want a prayer list, just an update on Mr. Rick DeWeese. He is miraculously healed by Jesus, but he's not here after surgery this morning. They actually postponed his surgery, so he didn't get operated on and then is that committed to come back to church. But y'all continue to pray for him as they had to postpone that and check on his heart some. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, maybe you'll be like the Grinch and your heart will grow a few sizes. Well, maybe they find one. Kidding. And so I also wanted to remind you that tonight we will be getting into the nitty-gritty of some of these things, and so we are going to be talking about some heavy-hitting topics. There will be talk about cyberbullying, talk about pornography and sexting and sextortion and all the different things that go on in the digital world and all the grooming and the predators and stuff that's out there. There will be some videos that we show that do tell very honest stories, and so those can be kind of shocking or appalling, but I just want to make sure everybody gets that disclaimer on the front end that those things are coming up. If that's something that you're uncomfortable seeing or viewing or hearing about, then please know that you can step out and no judgment or anything along those lines. I also want to make sure that anybody interested in or currently participating in the choir, if we run up to 7, if it gets to be close to 7 o'clock and we're still rocking and rolling, feel free to just slip out. We're going to live stream all of this, so if you miss the tail end, you can go back and watch it on YouTube. But it is important. Y'all have got 1 hour from 7 to 8 to practice. So if you're in choir, please feel free to just slip out and go ahead and make your way downstairs right at or right before 7 o'clock. I'm going to pray for us, and then we will, I forgot. I almost forgot. Buddy let me know that he asked Beth Hester, and she is going to stay. So if you are interested in choir and you need childcare, there will be childcare for choir from 7 to 8. And so Beth has very graciously offered to do that for us. So there will be childcare if you need that to go to choir tonight from 7 to 8. So making you aware of that as well. All right. We're going to pray, and we're going to pray over our church, over the presentation, over Christina. But I also do want to take a moment in this prayer time and ask you in your hearts, and I'll pray out loud for the family of Charlie Kirk. Hopefully you have already heard this, and this is not news, but he was murdered today. And that is hard to say out loud, but it is what happened. And so we want to pray for his little girls, and for his wife, and for his family. He is a devout Christian who is in the presence of Jesus right now, but their family very much needs our prayers. So let's pray together, and then we will turn things over to Miss Christina. Pray in your heart as I pray out loud. Father in heaven, we come before you tonight, and God, as we begin this time of worship, this time of equipping and educating ourselves to defend ourselves against the forces of darkness that are at work in this world, I can't help but think of the forces of darkness that attacked one of your strong warriors this afternoon. And Lord, I don't understand why you decided to allow your son's service here on earth to be cut short in this way, when it sure seemed like, from our perspective, that there was a lot of good that he was accomplishing. But Lord, we are trying and striving to trust that you are at work in all things for the good of those who love you and are called according to your purpose. And so, God, we trust that even in this terrible act, that you are at work to bring about good, to bring about your glory and the good of those who love you. We pray specifically for Charlie Kirk's family, especially for his children, that he will not get to see grow up. And we pray, God, that you would be with them and fill the void that's now left in their heart and in their life. Be with his wife, Lord, as she moves into motherhood without her partner, without her soulmate there by her side. And Lord, there's so many other terrible atrocities that happen around this world and in our state, in our nation. God, we're asking for your help and for your mercy. This world is terrible and cursed by our sin. And we are in desperate need of a Savior and a Redeemer and a Rescuer. Please, God, move in power and change the tides. Lord, help reverse some of the effects of this curse, that this world might look more and more like heaven looks, that your will may be done here on earth just as it is in heaven. Father, we pray that you would be with Christina tonight as she is giving us wonderful information and equipping and tools and knowledge to help protect our children, to help fight and combat the forces of darkness that would seek to poison the minds of our children and our youth. Lord, we pray that you would bind Satan from the hearts and minds of our children. And God, for any of the children that are represented in any household here this evening, Lord, we pray if they do not yet trust in you, that you would bring them unto salvation, unto faith in you and you alone, and that you would protect them and preserve them, that your angels would be around and about them, that, Lord, the evil of this world would not infect their heart, but the holiness of your Spirit in them would infect their schools and their friends and their teachers and their social circles, that they would be salt and light everywhere that they go. And that, God, you would protect them from the evils that would seek to do them harm and distract them from you and from your goodness. God, we love you so very much. We lack so much understanding, but all we know to do is to trust in you. Lord, it reminds me of King Jehoshaphat's prayer in 2 Kings. We don't know what to do, Lord, but our eyes are on you. So, Lord God in heaven, we entrust all these things to you. Please be with those who are on our prayer list, those who are in desperate need of your love and your mercy and your healing and your deliverance. We ask, Lord, that you would touch each one in a special way, and that your Spirit would be here with us tonight. We ask all this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. All right. Good evening. You guys doing okay tonight? So tonight, like he said, is going to be a lot heavier than last week. I feel like I was able to have fun and we could laugh last week. But a lot of the things that we're talking about this week, they're not funny, they're not light. But I'm glad we're talking about them, because if we can't talk about these things in the church, they are going to get talked about in the world. You know, our students, our kids, they're hearing these things on the bus, on the playground with their friends. So we have to be able to combat that and talk about that, you know, with them. But before we really get into this, kind of like he was saying, I've found out about the church. If you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, he's like an activist. He's a very outspoken Christian. He's a believer. He is really kind of combating like woke community, all that kind of stuff. And so anyways, my husband, we had seen the shooting and stuff like that. And then I'm literally putting my makeup on, getting ready to come in here. And he stuck his head in and he said, you know, he's dead. He's died. And like, I don't know the man, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know him personally. I mean, I watch a lot of his videos and stuff like that. But it just reminded me, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. It just reminded me that, like, we live in a fallen world. And this stuff that we're teaching our kids, it's going to be countercultural. Like, it's not going to be what all their friends are doing. It's not going to be what's popular. But what we're trying to do is help them navigate this world. And so I was, 1 Peter 5:8-9, it says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings." And I thought about that on the way here, and the people he's prowling around the most for are our kids. He is looking for a way to deceive them, looking for a way to ensnare them, looking for a way to confuse them. And so really tonight we just want to bring some awareness of some stuff that is going on social media and things like that. You guys can go ahead and put the first slide up. So last week, you can keep going. We talked a little bit about the stages of parenting. So last week we talked about how, you could be in multiple stages, right? You could have a little one, you can have a kid in high school, you could be, an empty nester. But our job during any of those seasons is that our job is to be their parents, right? And our job is for us to be the authority, really second only to God, the authority in their lives. And so, I just want to encourage you tonight, like you don't just have the right, but you have the responsibility to be the first voice in their lives, especially on the topics that shape their worldview. And so we talked a little about iPhone and tablet statistics, how many kids have tablets and iPhones and how many hours a day they're spending. And then we also talked about going home and doing kind of an edit on our phones or an audit. Did anybody have a chance to look at your phone and see maybe how much time you're spending on certain apps or anything like that? Or did anybody look at your kid's phone? Did anybody have a chance to look at your kids' phones or anything? If you did, how many of you, when you looked at your kids' phone, did they say like, Mom, Dad, my eyes are opened. Thank you for calling me to a higher standard. Like, please set boundaries in my life. No, they probably didn't, because boundaries, while they're needed, they're not fun, right? They're not always fun. It's not always fun to have a boundary. And like I said last week, we sometimes look at boundaries like they're a bad thing, and boundaries are not bad. It's just they're needed. And so you guys can go ahead and move on. This right here, and if you click it, it's going to move. So this is what life looks like. In this picture, it's a video if y'all want to click on it. I don't know if you've ever been to a country that looks like this when they're driving. It's really scary. But this is what life looks like for a child, really, or an adult without boundaries, right? There's just chaos. It's confusing. It's scary. There's like a lack of control. Maybe they're overstimulated. I would be very overstimulated if I was on a motorcycle or in one of these vans or anything like that. But if we don't help our kids set boundaries, they're not going to do it for themselves, right? Like I said, they're not going to come up to us and say, I feel really anxious because I'm spending 7 hours a day on my phone. Can you please take it away from me? Like, they're just not going to do that, right? And so we have to help them. And the way we do that is through boundaries. And so, like it says on the screen, the purpose of boundaries is to define, guide, and to protect our kids. And without those things, we have little to say in what's shaping them. And so as we start tonight, like I said last week, this is interactive. As we start tonight, just name a few things what is shaping our worldview. Just tell me one thing that you think is shaping the way you see life, the way your kids see life. What shapes our worldview? Entertainment. Social media. Okay, the news. Anything else? Okay, celebrities, very good. Okay, those are all really good, and they're all on my slide. So we have a lot of things that do shape our worldview, okay? And so those are a lot of things. So it's family, it's friendships, it's our self-worth, it's media, and it's culture. Those are all things that are playing into how we see the world. So our family, our family traditions, rules, and our beliefs, they influence the way we see the world. So the way you grow up in your household, the way you're teaching your kids, your grandkids, that is going to shape our kids' worldview. They're going to think, oh, well, if we do this in my house, everyone must do this in their houses. The friendships, who we spend our time with has a huge impact on us. Peer pressure can be positive and it can be negative. My son has a few kids in his life that when he hangs out with them, I'm like, I can tell who you've been hanging out with, because he just like last week we talked about, he mimics them. He acts like they act, and it's not always a good thing. So we have to be careful with our friendships. Our self-worth is something else that helps us shape our worldview, and that's just how we value ourselves. Do you have a positive self-worth? What do you think about yourself? The next one is media, and that can be anything from TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's just a few of them. There's so many of them now. And I think they are probably influencing our lives more than we would care to say. And then our culture, so where we live, it's in, what's important in our community, it shapes how we see the world. So being in Alabama, being in the South, you watch football on Saturdays, or you might go to Friday night football at the local high school. Our culture helps us shape our worldview. And last week we talked a little bit about this, that a child's brain is still developing, right? Okay, so does anybody remember how old they are when their brain is fully developed? 25. Okay, so like I said last week, if your kids are starting to worry you a little bit, just give them a little bit of time. Their brain will not be fully developed until they're 25. So give them a little bit of time to figure things out. But, in the way that God developed our brain, we are highly adapted. We're highly, adaptable to what we repeatedly are exposed to. So it's called resilience. Our brain is very resilient. And that's like the wiring of our brains. It absorbs what we see, we hear, and we experience, whether it's good or bad. So our brains are constantly making new pathways based on what we've been exposed to. And so since their brains are still developing, so since our kids' brains are still developing, they are not equipped to handle the onslaught of information that comes through social media, through their screens, through social media. And in addition, screens are highly addictive for kids. And so a lot of the information that we use is from Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. And so if you have not read that book, we would highly recommend reading that, because it talks all about like how anxiety has changed over the last 20 years. And a lot of it has to do with when cell phones became more mainstream. And so we talked a little bit about dopamine last week, but even a small amount of screen time is like crave inducing, because it's not one of those things where if you like, it's kind of like ice cream. Like you eat a bite of ice cream and you're like, oh, I really want some more of that ice cream, but if you eat too much ice cream, it makes you sick. It's not that way with, at least I don't feel like it's that way with media and things like that. Because kids, once they get a little bit, they're like, oh, I don't want to, my son has 15 minutes. When he plays a video game, I'm like, you get 15 minutes. But it's like not when the timer goes off, he's going to say, oh, that was a perfect amount of time, Mom. I will stop right here. It's always like, come on, I'm right in the middle of something. Can I have 2 more minutes? Can I have 1 more minute? Can I finish this thing out? And so it's because there's an artificially high amount of dopamine that's being dumped in their bodies every time they get on social media, every time they get on a video game, every time they watch TV, really anything media related, it dumps a really ton of dopamine in their body. And so when they stop watching or scrolling, maybe you've noticed this, their dopamine crashes below normal into a deficit, which makes them want to get back on. They're like, oh, well, I felt good when I was playing this. Now I'm not playing it. Now I feel like almost like a withdrawal, or like a drug. And then they're like, the only thing that's going to make me feel better is if I get to play again. So literally, my son will get done usually with a video game, and immediately he'll be like, well, can I watch a show? And I'm like, you just had 15 minutes on the video game. Isn't that enough? But it just creates this more. Like there's a need for more. And so they constantly crave it. And so that's just one of the negative effects of media and screens kind of on our kids. And then we're going to look at a few more kind of throughout this kind of setup, kind of what we're going to be talking about the rest of the night. So here are some of the negative effects. Physical health. Okay, so sleep patterns, it says. A lot of kids are not sleeping at night. They're staying up on their phones, on their tablets, until all hours of the morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or they're playing a video game until all hours of the morning. And so they're waking up tired. They can't focus. Kids, any age up until they're probably in their 20s, they probably need like 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And so if they're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't know if this happens to you. When I wake up in the middle of the night, because I have an 18-month-old who doesn't like to sleep, my tendency is just to pull open my phone, because I'm like, well, I'm bored. I can't just, so I'll open my phone, and all of that light, the light from your phone, it actually wakes you up more. It makes it harder to fall back asleep at night. And so if our kids are constantly feeding on that, it's going to mess up their sleep patterns. The other thing is their motor development and their coordination. Kids need to run, they need to play, they need to be outside and all the things. But if they're constantly hunched over, playing on something or this, they're literally showing like neck issues and shoulder issues and things like that. And the last thing with that is increased headaches, neck issues, and tendinitis, which are just some of the physical issues. Some of the emotional issues that we're seeing are overstimulation. Kids are just so overstimulated today. It's like they don't know how to sit still. They don't know how to be in a quiet area, anything like that. FOMO is so huge. FOMO is the fear of missing out. And so if I didn't get invited to something when I was in middle school or high school, I didn't know about it until I showed up to school the next day, right? Because people were going to be talking about it. Now, if kids don't get invited to something, all they have to do is open up their Instagram and they're like, oh, so-and-so got together with my friends and I wasn't there. So it just, this huge increase in FOMO because they actually can see what they're missing out on. And just also, like I said, a huge increase in anxiety and depression. Instagram has actually admitted that teenage girls that are on Instagram have higher rates of depression than those who are not. So the last area on this is just education. Like I said, any educator will tell you that kids need sleep to perform well at school. So they're seeing a lot of lower scores on language and thinking tests because kids are so used to just looking at a screen, not interacting with people, things like this. And so the next one, like I said earlier, they learn through play. Kids learn through play. They learn through imagination. They need to build. They need to explore. They need to sing. They need to touch. They need to paint, all those kind of things. And the screen keeps them tethered to a 3-inch world. It's just right here, and I have friends that, both her kids have iPads, their own headphones as well. So, it's not even that they're on their iPad in the room with everyone else. It's literally they're on their iPad with their own headphones in their own little world. It's like they have no clue what's going on around them. And so one thing is that, like this says up here, it says 7 hours a day leads to the thinning of the brain's cortex, and that's actually what happens in Alzheimer's patients. So we are willingly allowing the thinning of our brain because of so much screen time. And so these are just a few things, just a few of the negative effects. And we are going to hit on some more as we keep going. And the first one, just some dangers that we have noticed and that we have seen in social media and things like that is the perception of reality. So as we look at this picture, which of these faces represents a 10-year-old girl? Oh, yeah, y'all's left, okay? So, of course, all of us in here, I don't think any person would look at this picture and say, that one on the right is a 10-year-old. I would think she was 20, but that's the same girl, okay? But if the girl on the left, all she's seeing is pictures like the girl on the right, then what is she going to think about herself? I'm not pretty enough. My hair is not, I don't have a beautiful blowout, whatever. So what's happening is their perception of reality, even though they're looking at themselves in the mirror, this is what they're perceiving as reality. And we know that this is not true. We know that that's not a 10-year-old or not a real 10-year-old. Right? But like I was saying earlier, there's so many stats that are coming out now about social media and these people who actually work for tech companies who are saying, my kid doesn't have a phone or my kid does not have social media because I'm the senior advisor for engagement for Facebook or I'm this person for Instagram. And so 1 in 3 girls said that they felt worse about themselves and their body image because of Instagram. And another thing on that, Sarah Wynne Williams, she's the former director of public policy of Facebook. She wrote a book called Careless People, and she discovered that due to Meta AI, I don't even know how this is possible, when a girl deletes multiple selfies off her phone, so she takes a selfie and she says, oh, I don't like that, she deletes it. Oh, she took another angle, she deletes it. That's when Instagram will hit her for an ad for a beauty product. So if your 12-year-old is taking selfies with her phone, I like this one, and then she deletes them. Then on the next thing she sees on her Instagram is going to be an ad for Ulta or an ad for Sephora or an ad for this lip plumper or something like that. Because basically it's saying, well, if she's deleting multiple selfies, then obviously she has low self-esteem. So we should try to get her to buy something to make her feel better. And that's crazy. Like that sounds like something I don't know. It just sounds like something that's not even possible, but it is. And so we know the difference between these two pictures and its filters, right? The girl on the right, I don't know any 10-year-old that looks like that. That's a filter. They've changed her eyes. They've changed her hair. She probably changed the length of her nose. She made her lips bigger. And what we have to tell kids and what we have to let them understand is what they're seeing on social media is somebody's best. So what they're doing is they're comparing their everyday life to somebody else's best. And I do this, I'm 43 years old and this happens to me. I will be posting, like my friend, I can vividly remember a friend of mine had twins. They went to the beach. She posted all these pictures and she was just like, look at all this fun we're having and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I had just gone to the beach with my 3-year-old. That I had one, and I texted her and I was like, you guys look like you had so much fun. I was like, Jacob was literally driving us crazy the entire time. We didn't sleep, all this kind of stuff. And she texted me back. She was like, oh yeah, that was all a lie. She was like, those are the only good pictures we got because they were terrible the entire time, right? But I'm comparing my beach trip to this girl's beach trip, and it wasn't even true. And so that's what kids are doing. They're comparing themselves to somebody else's highlight reel. And so that was the first danger of media is the perception of reality. The second thing is cyberbullying. And so this is happening so much. It's unfortunate how much this is happening. The little girl in the picture here, her name is Charlie Tate, and she had a phone, and it was late one night, and 4 boys FaceTimed her, and they were making fun of the way she looked. They were making fun of her outfits, which, I mean, look at this picture. She's beautiful. She's this beautiful little girl, and she killed herself that night because she had gotten bullied over the phone. And so this is something a lot of parents tell us they just don't know how to even navigate. Basically, simply put, cyberbullying is bullying with the use of digital technology. So this can be doing something on social media. This can be messaging. This can be texting. This can be gaming platforms. And it's repeated behavior aimed at scaring, angering, or shaming those that are targeted. So this is a huge deal that's going on right now in our young people. So it can look anything like spreading lies about or posting embarrassing photos, sending hurtful, abusive, or threatening messages, or impersonating someone and sending mean messages to other people on their behalf. Like someone takes your phone and they're like, I hate you, you know, this kind of that's cyberbullying. And so the reason it's such a big thing now is because real bullying, like you actually had to see the people, right? Someone had to actually come up to you and say the thing or call your house phone or something. These kids, they can't get away from it because it's on their phone. It's happening on their social media platforms. They can't get away from it. It's not like this only happens at school and then I can go home and have refuge. It's happening constantly. And so the thing is, we have to educate our kids. Hey, if you're being bullied, you have to report it. You have to tell someone, tell your guidance counselor at school, tell somebody about what's happening, and you have to block these people. We don't want anyone else being the ones that tell our kids what their self-worth is. I don't want a bully telling my son who he is. I want him to be hearing that from me, right? And so one thing is that cyberbullying does leave a digital footprint, so a record that can prove useful and provide evidence in providing the abuse and stopping the abuse. So I think a lot of times kids just think like, I can do whatever I want over my phone. I'll just delete the text message. And there are ways of retrieving that kind of stuff. But just so you know, cyberbullying is actually a crime in Alabama. So if you have been a victim, if you have a kid that's been a victim of cyberbullying, or unfortunately, if they are the ones that are the perpetrators, cyberbullying is a crime in the state of Alabama. And I'm just going to read it off what it says. It's a crime in Alabama for any person to harass another person by any form of communication, including email, text message, or social networking posts. The crime may escalate to a felony if it goes to cyber stalking. So this is not just they're just being mean, they're just being mean girls. No, this can actually turn into a felony if it goes undetected. So that's kind of the second one. The third danger of media that we're going to be talking about, where this kind of gets a little harder and scarier, is sexual predators. And so the FBI has stated that there are over 500,000 sexual predators online at any given moment. So just think about that. 500,000 sexual predators are online at any given moment, and the people that they're targeting are between the ages of 13 and 15. Something there now has come out is that specifically they are targeting 14 to 17-year-old boys, which that was very shocking to me. I did not know that. And so we have to know how to protect our kids because, like I said last week, I would never let a predator come in my house. I would never let a mean person, a mugger, anything like that. I would never willingly let them into my house. But what's happening is they're accessing our kids through their phones. They're accessing our kids through social media. They're accessing them when we think it's just a friend. And so when we go into the schools, we'll usually ask the students, hey, how many of you have social media? Obviously, most of them raise their hands. And then we'll ask them, how many of you have ever befriended someone on social media that you do not know? 95% of them, 99% of them will raise their hand. So that means that someone has sent them a request to follow them or to be friends with them, and they don't know who they are. But they look at their profile, and they're like, oh, that's a 15-year-old girl. She looks like she goes to my school, or maybe she goes to the neighboring school. We're the same age, and they just hit accept. And they don't even think about it. But really, it's a 40-year-old man in another country that's trying to gain access to them. And the thing that helps the most in this is having their account set to private. So if your kid has social media, go on their phone and make sure if they have Instagram, if they have Facebook, if they have Snapchat, all of those things, their accounts have to be set to private. Because if their account is set to public, then anyone and everyone can have access to every amount of information that they post. And we've already discovered, made the point that kids don't always make the best decisions, right? Sometimes they post things they shouldn't, or they say things that they shouldn't. Like, here I am in front of my school, in my school uniform. Like, if somebody really wanted to, actually, when I was doing this class last week in Trussville, or 2 weeks ago in Trussville, someone in the audience said, oh, actually, there was a girl in Destin who had been posting pictures of herself, and a guy in Philadelphia had somehow found her profile. He got on a plane in Philadelphia and flew to Destin to find this girl. So it's happening. This isn't just stuff that's like we kind of loftily hear about it. I mean, it's actually happening today. Like the guy got on a plane, he knew where she was, and he went to find her. And so we just have to make sure that their accounts are set to private. The other thing we have to make sure of is that our accounts are set to private, okay? So that means if someone goes on my Facebook page and I've posted a picture of my son on his first day of school and I say, Cahaba Elementary, 3rd grade, born, 4/12, like I had a friend the other day, she literally posted every piece of information about her child on this picture. I was like, why are you telling people full birthday, date, month, and year, where he goes to school, what his favorite things are? I'm like, that's all a predator needs is to say like, oh, this kid's really into whatever, football, or this kid's really into this, because it just gives them an edge. So we have to be careful too of our own profiles and make sure that those are set to private. Predators, they usually follow a 3-step process. And that is they scout, they manipulate, and they trap. With like human trafficking, you may have heard of this, where like someone will set up a ring where they're a modeling agency, right? And so they put all these things out there and they see people going through the mall and they say, oh, you look so beautiful. Have you ever thought about modeling? So they're scouting people. They have people out there that are scouting. In this way, what they're doing is that they are making fake accounts. So they are making fake accounts that look like a teenager, that look like someone that all these kids would want to get to know, but it's really a wrong person behind it. And they are pretending to be young people. They have gotten they're very shrewd at manipulating children into sending them their personal information or their pictures, anything that can manipulate them, okay? Because then they say, oh, well, you sent me something. Now they have dirt on them. Oh, I remember that picture that you sent me? What do I'm going to send it to everyone in your classroom. I'm going to send it to everyone at your school. I know where you go to school because you posted about it. You go to Ashville. I'm going to send this to all your friends, And then they trap. That's when the trap is set. And so we could maybe even sit here and think like, my kid would never do that. My kid would never talk to someone online that they don't know. They would never be vulnerable like that, and it could look like this, they have a fight with us or they have a fight with a sibling and they are just like, oh, just go to my room or whatever. And this person that has been blowing up their phone on Instagram, all of a sudden they say, oh man, I'm so sorry you got in a fight with your parents. Like, I'll come pick you up. Where do you live? And in that moment of I'm just frustrated, I'm mad, all this kind of stuff, they tell them, yeah, come pick me up. I live at 104 Oak Street. And there we have it. They've gotten picked up. They've gotten taken. But it's not just someone physically coming to them. It's somebody over the computer reaching out to them. Come on, tell me all this information. So, like I said, we've talked about this before. Their brains are still forming, and they don't always understand cause and effect. We are going to watch this video. This is the one we were talking about. That's a little. It's unfortunate, and you might think that the number of sexual predators online isn't very many, or that your children might be able to see the danger, but I want you guys to watch this. It's better for us to be offended for a few minutes rather than one of these evil people ever getting close to our kids. And so we're going to watch this for a few minutes.
I never thought I would be chasing child predators. It was 2 years ago when our team intercepted conversations between a 12-year-old girl and a 40-year-old pedophile. He wasn't just talking to her, he was abusing her, coercing her, collecting images and videos, and no one in her life, her parents, sixth grade teacher, or friends, knew what was happening. We coordinated with federal, state, and local law enforcement. Then we built a story around her. A history, a family, a social circle. Libby was born in 2004 and is a sophomore who recently moved to Indiana. We created multiple online accounts for Libby, prominently displayed her age, and posted typical teen content. We even created virtual friends for Libby who would comment on her posts. With everything in place, we would launch the project, give it a few months, and see if anyone would buy it. So we hit the button, and Libby went live. Within the first hour of posting on Libby's accounts, 7 adult men contacted her. By the end of 9 days, that number was 92. The conversations ranged in severity from making sexual comments to sharing and requesting explicit photos and videos to manipulation and threats. The onslaught was so massive, it took 5 of us playing Libby full-time to keep up. We decided to move off-site where we could scale up the operation and gather as much information and evidence as possible. Since Libby is 15, men might try to falsely justify their actions towards her because of her proximity to adulthood. Would parents question, where's the bar? Would a 13-year-old face the same barrage of predators? A 12-year-old? How young could it possibly go? The graphics team transformed me into 11-year-old Bailey. Bailey is afraid of the dark. She hasn't had her first crush yet. She's still prepubescent. A parent might assume Bailey would be insulated from any sort of predatory attack. We launched our 11-year-old persona online.
444 and go. One like from a guy whose profile photo is a penis.
So
let's see.
1 minute and 7 seconds. We have a message request.
Although sorry, 2 more requests just came in. How much time? A minute and 40 seconds?
Yeah. How old are you? You go to the profile, you know that is a child. It also says in the profile that the child is in 6th grade.
Another one.
It's just lighting up. Like the inbox is just boom, 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 boom.
An incoming video call in less than 5 minutes.
I can't see you. Don't be shy.
They all say don't be shy.
Few parents know just how dangerous these platforms are for so many kids, so we brought some on site so they could see for themselves. 11-year-old Bailey's persona was approached with an even more disturbing level of manipulation and requests. the abuse happened from a distance, our child profiles also received requests to meet up in person, especially our 15-year-old persona. 28-year-old Keith was relentless. Like the others, he took no issue with Libby's age. He shared explicit videos of himself. He treated the virginity of an underage girl as a prize to be stolen. The brutal reality is that a predator doesn't have to be in the same room, building, or even country to abuse a child. Libby and Bailey may not be real, but they represent countless children who are being sexually and psychologically abused, both online and in real life. I think about how I would have felt as a young, impressionable child. I would have kept the abuses to myself for fear of being shamed and blamed. I would have suffered with it, secretly and quietly. Our work has led to numerous arrests, but it's a drop in the bucket. Our work, nor the work of law enforcement or legislation, will ever be able to protect children as well as engaged parents and guardians can. When asked, my advice for parents is to talk to your kids early and often, know what apps they're using and with whom they're communicating. When facing crisis, kids need a soft place to land. Make sure they know they can come to you for help.
The first time I showed that and watched it, I was just like, I didn't know that we could show things like that. But I mean, I love the quote that she says, where she said, "Our work, nor the work of law enforcement or legislation, will ever be able to protect our children as well as engaged parents and guardians can. Make sure they know they can come to you for help." And so, I mean, what do you guys think about what emotion does that evoke after you watch that? Disgust? Anger? And like I said, another quote, she said, "A predator doesn't have to be in the same room, building, or country to abuse a child," and that is so scary. And so we just have to be careful as parents with what we're posting, but also, like I said earlier, is checking with our kids, making sure they're public, their things are private, and that people can't get access to them. Because like even with me on my Instagram account, if I like a video and I say, recipe, send me the recipe for this, it sends me a message request. Like, they can't just message me, they have to request to message me. And so that's what we wanted to talk about with sexual predators. The next thing that's a danger of media is sexting. And this has become so prevalent among teenagers nowadays. It's like not even a big thing. They say now that sexting is like first base for Gen Z. It's just like, oh, well, I mean, this is, it's like just like kissing. Like, we'll just send me a picture kind of thing. And before we talk about that, to me, this topic goes back to boundaries. Because if I have taught my kids proper boundaries about who can see parts of their body, or the parts of their body that need to be covered, anything a bathing suit covers or anything that your underwear covers, that kind of thing. Like if someone had asked me for a picture, like when I was in high school, I would have been like, are you crazy? Like, I mean, I would have been flabbergasted if somebody had asked me for that. But I think if we don't teach our kids, like, this is the boundary, like, you don't show people these things. We have to tell them that. I mean, I don't even know if I ever had that conversation with my parents, but we have to teach them that, like, hey, these are the boundaries around your body, and nobody else has access to you, right? And so these are things we have to teach them. So sexting is the sending and receiving of sexually explicit messages, words, or images. It is used, it used to be... Let's see. They have no control. The thing we have to help them with this is that once they hit send, whether it's on Snapchat, whether it's on text, whether it's on a disappear, like Snapchat, the whole thing was like, oh, just send a picture and it disappears. It doesn't. Because all they have to do is they have to do a screenshot. So once the picture is out of their hands, they literally have no control over what happens next. That can be sent to everyone at the school. That can be sent to the principal. That could be sent to the girls' friends. That could be sent to their parents. And just it's not just girls that are doing this. They can't get that picture back. And they don't always see the ramifications of those kind of things. Also, the stats say that 1 in 4 kids today are sexting. 25% of our kids are sending nudes, are sending explicit pictures to people. Also, With this one, sexting is against the law in the state of Alabama. So currently in Alabama, a minor 17 or younger who creates, distributes, or possesses an image of a minor engaged in a sexually explicit act may be charged with a Class A to a Class C felony. So that means if a boy and girl are dating and she is under the age of 17 and she sends him a picture and he takes that picture and sends it off again, he can be charged with a felony. So these have big implications with the sexting and with the cyberbullying. It's not just, this is inappropriate. It is inappropriate, but there are larger ramifications for those things. So creating is taking the picture, distributing is the sending of the picture or the explicit text, and then possessing, this can be a picture of someone else's, so this can be a picture of someone else that your kid has saved on their phone, or even a picture of themselves on their own phone. And a sexually explicit act just means any sexual act that is being, where they're partially or fully undressed. We're going to go on to the sextortion stats. And so sextortion is another thing that is also happening. So I'm just going to read off these. I know it's kind of small up there. It says sextortion is a serious crime where someone threatens to expose sexual photos to gain something from the victim, usually financially or sexually. So 5% of teens have been the victim of sextortion. 1 out of 3 victims tell their parents, and only 8% of that is reported to the police. Boys, like I said earlier, boys are more likely than girls to be the victim of sextortion. Non-heterosexual adolescents are more than twice as likely to be victims. And the majority of victims are pressured by current or former romantic partners attempting to harass them, embarrass them, or control them. And so sextortion, like I was saying, kind of with like the manipulate and trap, is a huge thing that's also happening in our teenagers. And so we just want to show you guys this quick video about that.
We're going to turn now to the death of a high school football player. His family says he was driven to take his own life after falling victim to social media sextortion scam. Well, Reeve has that story. Good morning, Will.
Hey, good morning, George. It's unfathomable. A teenager driven to suicide by a pernicious and pervasive scam. Now the teen's parents are speaking out about their tragedy.
Overnight, the parents of a Michigan teenager speaking out about a growing social media scam they said led to the death of their 17-year-old son.
3 people from across the world came into my house that night while I was sleeping and murdered Jordan. And I had zero chance to stop it.
John DeMay and Jennifer Buta opening up about so-called sextortion scams, which trick teens into sending explicit photos of themselves online, only to be blackmailed. Their son Jordan becoming a victim of the scheme, later taking his own life.
Jordan was this outgoing young man. He had a smile that was contagious. He loved playing sports.
And he was handsome. He was popular. He was the prom king.
The beloved high school football player was scammed into sending explicit photos of himself to who he thought was a teenage girl on Instagram. But prosecutors allege he was actually speaking to Samuel Ogoshi, a grown man from Nigeria, pretending to be a young woman to produce a sexually explicit image of Jordan with the intention of using the image to blackmail him.
He drained his bank accounts as much as he could.
On March 25, 2022, prosecutors say Ogoshi demanded $1,000 from the teen, writing under the fake account Danny Roberts. I have screenshot all your followers and tags, can send this nudes to everyone. All you've to do is cooperate with me and I won't expose you.
He's believing that all these images are going to his friends' mothers and his friends, and it just threw him into a tailspin.
2 hours after the initial threat, Jordan wrote, "I'm kill myself right now because of you." The scammer's response, "Good, do that fast, or I'll make you do it." Moments later, Jordan died by suicide. Last year, the FBI said there were roughly 7,000 reports of sextortion online, resulting in more than a dozen suicides. Authorities stressing that while any child could be targeted, 14 to 17-year-old boys are most often victimized. Now, Jordan's parents are helping other families know of the potential dangers about what children are exposed to online and how to prevent it from happening.
Having open conversations about the dangers of social media in general and specifically sextortion, let your kids know. If it does happen, go to a trusted adult and let them know that this is happening and get their help.
Meta said in a statement, quote, "No family should ever have to experience a tragedy like this. We want teens to have a safe experience on our apps, and we've built safeguards and technology to help combat any dangerous activity. We encourage all teens to report potentially harmful content or accounts in our apps if they feel unsafe." They went on to tout a tool for users to regain control of their pictures that's called Take It Down. Guys.
What a sad, sad story.
Really is.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out.
There we go. The thing about this, when I was in school, it would have been like the dorky girl that kind of no one told her she was pretty, and she would have been the one that was targeted. This kid was the prom king. He was the high school football captain. Like, he was a good kid, you know what I'm saying? And he still fell subject to this stuff because he got confused. He got scammed. And so this wasn't just a kid that was just trying to find his way. Like, he seems like he was a really good kid, and he got taken advantage of. So we're going to be moving into a different section, talking a little bit about pornography. And so the thing that we have to teach our kids is that sexting is pornography. So having an explicit picture of someone on your phone, both the creation and the distribution of images involving naked body parts, that is pornography in the eyes of the law. And so while our kids may not see the connection, we have to help them understand the seriousness involved in sexting. And so our research shows with pornography that the average age for first exposure nowadays is between 7 and 9 years old. So I have an 8-year-old. So statistically, there's a good chance that he could be exposed to something this year or next year, which scares me, because I don't know that he would even know what he was looking at, and I don't think what I've realized with a lot of the stuff that we've been researching, I don't think any child who finds pornography is doing it to be devious, or they're doing it because they're confused and they're like, what is this? Like, what is this video? That's weird. And they click on it. But then their curiosity is what continues to have them go back. So just like we talked about earlier, our brains are resilient. And so even if your child has been exposed to pornography, even if you're, if that's something you have dealt with in the past, our brains are resilient and new pathways can be formed. And so it's not that if someone is addicted to pornography that they will always be addicted to pornography. And I love that we serve a God that can rewrite our brains too. I love that we serve a God that can forgive us and that can change things and things like that. And so, but we do need to know that pornography, the images and things like that, it's very dangerous for our kids for what it does to their brain. We're going to talk a little bit more about that with some dopamine after this next video shows. You might have to click on it. There we go.
I was just playing on this game site, and all of a sudden this pop-up comes in the corner. You go and you click on it, and it's this porn site, and I'm like, whoa, that was weird. So I click on the X and I keep playing my game. For the few seconds that I saw it, I couldn't get it out of my head. You almost feel like a little craving, but at first you think it's curiosity, not a craving. Sometimes it would just be wanna see, click here. You're like, well, what are you talking about? You click on it and then there's just this whole screen full of it. The addiction really all started in 3rd grade when I was 9 years old.
You can't help but feel responsible for the fact that, you allowed this in the house. The internet is just sitting there ready.
His entire pornography addiction happened in the kitchen and living room of my home while the family was in the room.
A lot of the times, you don't just pick one picture and then just stare at it. You just keep going and going and going, and all the pictures are always different. Type like 3 letters and there you go, you've got it.
I so wish that you put porn into Google and you came up with pictures of naked women. Bad enough as it is, it's nothing like that.
People were thinking of the pornography that they remembered.
The pornography that I found under my dad's bed when I was 10. Stacks of hay and gingham shirts and moustaches. Broadband internet became available to the masses for the first time. Suddenly, woof, there was an explosion of internet pornography.
The things that we have to teach our kids about. I used to work for an organization in New Orleans, and I talked to 8th graders, 9th graders, middle school and high school students every day. And one day, one of the weeks we were talking about pornography, and I asked them, I said, how many of you know what pornography is? And it was like 8th or 9th grade. So I was like, this has to be a pretty good percentage. Not one kid raised their hand. I was like, this is so weird. I was like, what about porn? Has anyone ever seen, what porn is? Every single one of them raised their hand. They were like, oh, we didn't know that was the same word. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But the thing is that we have to tell our kids and teach them what it's dangerous for now and in their future. Number one is that it's addictive. Just like we were talking about with the dopamine, with the video games, we did a study this summer, and the guy who was speaking, the dopamine hits that happen with pornography make what happens with video games look like a drop in the bucket. I mean, each time that a picture is put up, an amount of dopamine is released by the brain. Every time they look at it, that amount of dopamine is decreased. So like if they had a huge dump of dopamine the first time they looked at pornography, the second time they look, they're kind of like, okay, I mean, that's the picture I looked at last time, and that doesn't it doesn't have the same effect. So then they look at something else. And then they look at something else because they have to look at something different to get that same effect, that same dopamine release. And that's how addiction occurs. And so studies show, like I said, that most people today have been exposed to porn by age 13. And a nationally represented survey of U.S. teens shows that 84.4% of males and 55% of females ages 14 to 18 have viewed pornography. And those are huge, staggering statistics. Another thing that we have to let them know besides it being addictive is that it affects our other relationships. When teens and adults, when they begin to consume pornography, it can change the way they view other people. People become like objects. People become just something for pleasure and things like that. Like instead of looking at people as human beings with thoughts and feelings and ideas and personalities. And this is called objectification, and it's how people become okay with like degrading other people. And the last thing kind of that we have to teach our kids is that an effect of pornography is the loss of intimacy. A loss of intimacy when they do actually have a relationship. Researchers tell us that when someone is looking at porn consistently, they tend to experience a loss of interest with their significant other and may prefer their pornography ritual rather than sex with a physical present person. Now, this is obviously what it will do to them later on, but it actually can come to the point where they say, I don't even care about a real person. Just the pornography is fine. And the thing that we have to understand with pornography, and honestly really any sin, not just pornography, is the shame spiral. And so it's just a spiral. There's a trigger. So something is triggered, and then they look at porn. They say, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm over that. Something triggers them. They look at porn. It causes shame. It causes isolation. And then somehow they're triggered again, and they're just caught in that spiral. And honestly, like I said, it's any sin, it's any addiction that gets stuck in the shame spiral. And so, to help them get out of that, we have to interrupt that process. Okay, we have to help them break free of shame, and then help get them out of isolation. Because the more they isolate, the easier it is for them to get into trouble. And so we have to talk to them, and like I said, a lot of the things that we talk about in this program, it's not fun. It's not like you're like, this is what I want to do on a Tuesday night is to have a conversation with my 12-year-old about pornography, but it's beneficial. It is something that we have to do. And so these are just some tips on how to talk to your kid about pornography. The first one is we have to acknowledge the awkwardness. Hey guys, I know this is weird. I know that this may not be what you want to talk to about with old mom and dad, but we need to talk about this kind of stuff. So acknowledging that it's awkward even for you, I think it helps. Because if we kind of come in there like, it's cool, we can talk about the, they're kind of like, why are you talking? Why are you so okay with this? But I think if we can say, I really don't want to talk to you about this, but we need to, because of your age, because of what we might think you might be exposed to, we need to talk about this. The second one is axe the anxiety. Pornography can be hugely triggering for people who've been sexually abused, or if they were exposed to sexually explicit material at a young age. And so if you have had an issue with pornography, or if something has happened to you physically as a child, it may be helpful to talk with a counselor or talk with a pastor prior to having these conversations with your children, because it might just bring a whole bunch of stuff up. The next thing is ask questions and encourage them to ask questions. So it could be, ask questions helps us tailor the conversation to what they want to know and in how much detail. If you get caught off guard, it's perfectly acceptable to say, that's a great question. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Like, we don't have to answer every question right in the moment. It's okay to say, Mom doesn't know the answer to that question. Let me get back to you. And then the last part is we have to abandon shame. Often when we're afraid for our kids' safety, we think they're hiding something or that they've done something wrong. We'll begin to make assumptions about them. Like, now I know that you might have done that. We don't want to assume that something's happened because we don't want to accuse them before we even know anything is there. And so we just want to abandon that shame of, hey, even if this has happened, we don't want you to... I'm here for you. I want to talk to you. Just like the video said, make sure that they're a soft place. Make sure that you're a soft place for your kids to land. And so these are just some questions. I don't think I put this on your worksheet, so if you want to jot any of these down, you could ask them, have you ever heard of pornography or porn? Because most kids don't even know that full word. Have you ever heard the word porn? Do you know what it is? If they say, yes, I've heard the word, do you know what it is? Do you know what that is? If yes, what is it? Tell me what it is. Have you ever seen it? These are just little leading questions. Have you ever seen it? Do your friends, do you have friends that watch it or talk about it? So a friend of mine I was at Ashville First Baptist 2 weeks ago. She said her nephew, he learned about pornography from a kid at his lunch table in 5th grade. Wasn't on TV. It wasn't on social media. The kid said, I found this stuff, and he told him all about it. He told him how it made him feel. He told him all the reactions it caused in him. And the little kid's sitting there he's mortified, but he's stuck at the lunch table with this kid. And so asking them, hey, have you ever had friends talk about this? Have your friends ever showed you anything like this? And then the biggest thing is, do you understand why it's bad? Do you understand why this is bad for you? Do you understand why this isn't good for you? There is a great resource that Fight the New Drug put together. And so that's a great, if you just write down Fight the New Drug, they have a lot of stuff that can help you talk with your kids through these things. I just want to give you guys a few action steps. The first one is that we have to encourage communication. So if they don't feel comfortable talking to you about this, they have to talk to somebody. Encourage them, hey, you need to talk to your counselor at school. You need to talk to the pastor, your youth pastor. We just have to get them out of that shame cycle to where they're actually talk to somebody. We do recommend that you implement filters and family accountability. You can do that on an iPhone. If you have an iPhone and your child is on your plan, you can set up all sorts of settings, like this is my child. We had lunch with a lady the other day. She was like, my son cannot download an app, delete an app. I can see all of his text messages. And I was like, that's amazing. I have an 8-year-old, so he doesn't have a phone yet. But I was like, when I get him a phone, I will set all of those things up so he doesn't have that much freedom. We do suggest that students that are struggling just to stay busy with screen-free activities. Go for a run, get outside, go hang out with your friends, get off the screen, because that's where the majority of the temptation is. And then we do have to set boundaries for our family. So one thing we talked about last week was not having your phone in your bedroom, not having your Chromebook in your bedroom, giving them boundaries to say, hey, we're trying to keep you safe, so make sure that we follow these rules. I do have a little bit of homework for you guys. The second page of your packet is something that we call, it's not us, it's actually an organization called BARK. They're the ones that made the video about the sexual predators. They have a family tech contract. And so if you have kids who have phones, I would totally encourage you to follow this. And you may not want to use every line that they have. There may be some things that you're like, oh, that's not really applicable. But it just helps you kind of set some guidelines that say, I will do this with my family. I will not, or I will do this with the phone, and then I will not do these things. Because then if something happens, it gives you some leverage to say, hey, you remember that thing you signed that we sat down like for 30 minutes and talked about, that you said you would not text and drive, or you would not send a picture that you weren't supposed to? Remember that thing that we signed? So you know what the rule is, so then you can pull this back out to kind of help you with some accountability. And the second one is, maybe if you didn't get a chance to check your kid's phone last week, go home and check their phone. Make sure that their Instagram, their Snapchat, their Facebook, their all the other ones, make sure that they're set to private, so they're not able to accept friend requests or have people who are not healthy and good looking at their information, and see who they're friending online. And then also on your homework, or on the worksheet, there's a podcast at the bottom, and it's called The Tech Edit. I'm sorry, I think it's supposed to be The Tech Exit. Anyways, it is a phenomenal podcast. She's pretty extreme. She's like, her kids don't have phones, they won't have phones, so they're 18, all this kind of stuff. But I would love for y'all to listen to that and just hear what she talks about with the effects on anxiety, on friendships, she even talks about how like ophthalmologists are finding that kids' eyes aren't working the way they're supposed to because they don't blink enough. And the reason they don't blink enough is because they're staring so much at the screens instead of like actually looking at people, that their tear ducts, they'll literally be on eye drops for the rest of their life because their tear ducts stopped working because they weren't blinking enough. Just crazy stuff like that. Stuff that's good for us to kind of hear, to say, maybe limiting our social media or our phones might be a good thing. But I just want to say, if y'all can keep going, we do have a parent toolkit. I know I've given you lots of QR codes and things like that, but we do have a parent toolkit, and I think that's what we have a QR code on the back. If you scan that, that will give you all of the resources that we have come across over the years, podcasts, books, things like that. There's actually a section that's like talking to your kids about pornography. There's a section on different parenting things if you have little kids or bigger kids. And that's just a resource that we give away for free because we want you guys to be empowered, even outside of what we're talking about on these Wednesday nights, just to have these conversations with your kids. And so does anybody have any questions or anything? I know that we're about time to wrap up. So does anybody have any questions about anything or comments or? Okay, yeah. I think she's saying it is, yeah. So, anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
That we would never be okay viewing or recommending or permitting in any way in our lives. And it's so much worse than just magazines and things from old days. It's terrible, shameful, and humiliating acts that people are doing to one another that are pursuing them and popping up on their screen. So it's much more harmful than just magazine images from days past.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Definitely. I know I was watching a podcast, or this guy was interviewed, and he's a very popular music guy right now. If I said his name, you know who it was. But he said he got married and he tried something that was a little too forceful, rough with his wife. And she said, "Where did you learn that? Like, where did that come from?" And he had to tell her, like, "I used to watch pornography." And I guess it just came like he hadn't watched pornography in a long time and all this kind of stuff. But then it's like once he was in a real relationship, they were married and they were about to have sex. I mean, it was like like what he had seen so much came out in his actions. And so thank you for saying that. Anyways, I'll be hanging out for a few minutes afterwards if you guys have any questions. But thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll be back next week for our last session is going to be all about friendships, dating, how to talk to your kids about dating, how to set boundaries in dating, and things like that. So if you have any friends that haven't made it to these, they can come next week. So thank you guys.